Testing. I'll just have to check it every few minutes to make sure it's still recording. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Deep Thoughts. My name is Adam Brown. Who cares? Episode 19. Yes. What a very special episode we have today. Very interesting stuff. Interesting to everybody. Everybody's going to care about this one. This is going to be the one. It's going to be the episode that goes big, that goes viral, that gets me lots of money. Lots of ads. Lots of sponsorships. Yes. This episode. If I could get sponsored by some good old coffee, that would be cool. That would be cool. Nah. I don't want the money. I don't want your money. I don't want nobody's monies. Oh, still recording on the old iPhone there. Still got the same setup here. That's okay. I'm goody with that. I'm good with that. Got the old mic. Got the old Fi-Fine. Been rocking this baby for about 2 years now. No, 1 year. No, 2 years. Yeah, I got it in 2020 on my 27th birthday. Today is August 5th of when I'm recording this, 2022. How are y'all doing? It's a beautiful day. It's a beautiful day today. Yes, we're casting. We're casting here. And, yeah, summertime, August, said to be the hottest month of summer. Tends to be, and it's been quite a hot one. It's actually only 73 degrees right now, according to my computer. But it's been in some, we've had some mid to high 90 days, like these last few days that I've just been, brutal. Yeah, man. So, how are you guys doing? I went and voted the other day. Missouri primaries were August 2nd. And yeah, I've been voting for about 10 years now. Since I turned 19, like 2012. And I voted my first presidential election, or 2011, for the 2012? No, yeah, 2012. Voted for the very first time. Felt good. I don't know. Something about it felt good. I guess, the fact that I was able to do it. I've always had a little bit of, I don't know, a little bit of politics instilled in me by my dad, I think. A good conservative man. But when I I don't get too much into it, but when I very first voted ever, I was open-minded libby-wibby. I was a hippy-dippy son of a gun. And in a lot of ways, I still am. But I just had a whole different perception of what that meant back then. And I casted my thine first vote to a one Barack Hussein Obama. And it was the worst mistake of my life. No, I've done worse things. But it's just, but not much, I guess what I'm trying to say is the sad thing is not much has changed since then. I've definitely become more, at least I attempt to be more involved in the political things and learn more, mostly about history. I think that's one of the most important things to learn about our country and about our world, is to learn the history of how things have gone and the decisions that people have made in the past that have gotten us to this point, to this day. But I'm still lazy, I don't do as much research into candidates like I should. It's just hard for me. It's hard for me, I'll think, elections are coming up, in a couple weeks. I better start looking at these candidates. And I might look at one or two, and then I'll get distracted and forget for days and days. And then voting comes, and I'm looking at a ballot full of people I don't even know. And it's bad, It's really bad. 10 years, and I still just haven't put in the work that I need to put into voting, but I still do it. And I wonder, if you don't know who you're voting for, should you go and vote, or should you just keep your vote to yourself? I don't know. I keep doing it though. I'm riding up the party line real hard though right now. I'm riding the red wave. I really like the red wave. I like the republicanism. Not all of them. I don't like all the Republicans, but I've come to realize in the last few years that the most important elections possibly are your local elections, your judges and your mayors and things like that. So your deputy, your sheriff, well, not your deputy, but your sheriff. You do vote for your sheriff. Things like that are really important. And so I've been voting, locally, and I missed out on the 2018 midterms. I think I was just busy or something, or I think maybe it was specifically I just felt like I didn't do enough research. But our man Josh Hawley got in there, yes, for the great state of Missouri. Roy Blunt stepped down from the Senate, which left a seat open, and man, there were so many people running for that seat, like 20 Republicans and like 11 Democrats or something. I tried to look at a couple Democrats and a couple Republicans, and it's just tough because it's like, I guess you want to look into what the decisions that they've made in the past or the things that they've supported in the past. But it's like when you look into these guys, a lot of it, you just find guys and gals. You just find things that they say, and it's just hard to go based off of what people say because politicians will say anything to get elected. I'm real big on people who haven't been involved in politics long. I like a young whippersnapper. For instance, we had our local presiding commissioner, which I didn't even know what that was until this year. That was up for grabs this year between two Republicans, and I voted for a dentist over an 80-year-old lifelong politician because the dentist has he's never been in politics before, and I like that. I like that aspect now. I like when people aren't in a part of the web, a part of the swamp, so to speak. Some people, are the mind of, oh, well, they know politics, then that's the person you should vote for. But it's like, it's not really how it's supposed to work. Politics now in government is so much gobbledygook and complications and law, and it's gotten so gross and enlarged. And maybe you would say, well, yeah, you do need a good Harvard-educated, law-educated, politician to be in politics, but it's like it wasn't supposed to be that way. When this nation first started, people were voting for farmers and stuff like that to represent them. Regular everyday citizens to represent them, and they'd come back to their town, and then they would live in their town, and they didn't make money, they didn't get rich off of it. And that's how it was supposed to be. So I voted for a dentist. Oh, but I still need to put some more work into it, man. Especially how preachy I get about voting. Because I do feel like it's so important. But yeah, Eric Schmidt won our primary, and I know there's a lot of good things about him too. There's kind of one big thing that I do disagree with him on. I won't talk about it, but it's tough. It's tough to choose, man. It's really tough to choose. You just don't know, who's going to get in there and do the right thing. So we'll see. Anyways, politics kind of has to do with what we're talking about today. Today we're talking about the good cuppeth, black magic, the liquid gold, also known as kafefe, kawa. We're talking about coffee, folks. Oh yeah, it's time. Ooh, now I will say, I've been sick for about 2 weeks now, man. I can't believe it. I got sick about 2 weeks ago after I went to the comedy club in KC for open mic, dude. And waiting to go up, I just started feeling myself get sicker and sicker. And by the time I got home that night, my throat hurt so bad, and I had to call into work the next day. And I've been sick ever since. It's gotten better gradually, but my taste really isn't back very much yet. I can barely taste this wonderful, light roasted caribou blend here called Cabin Life from Caribou Coffee. Caribou Coffee is an excellent coffee, highly recommended. Better than Starbucks. Fluff Starbucks. Starbucks is the devil. We drink Caribou in this house. Yes. But, man, yeah, my taste, dude, is still not back all the way. I haven't taken a COVID test. I don't plan on it. Last time I did, I didn't have COVID anyway when I swore I did, so I just don't care. I don't care. Okay? I don't care. You guys can care, and I won't care. How about that? How about we play the games like by those rules? Okay? We're talking about coffee today. And it's about time because I talk about it in every podcast pretty much. I'm always drinking the good cupith. I'm always talking about the coffee that I'm drinking. And it's, I've been drinking it for like 10 years now, 10 plus years. No, like 10 years. Since I was about 18. And, oh man, I still love it pretty much just as much. You know, with drugs, you got the tolerance factor. You know, you get tolerant a little bit, but that first cup or two still just smacks, bro. It's still good. It's still that good. And I just love so many different things about coffee because there's so many different things to love about it, to obsess about it, you know, to unleash my autism on. I love to get autistic about coffee. So yeah, everyone, I have the phone turned away from me this time because I feel like the picture's just better that way instead of the front-facing camera. So I will be checking every once in a while to make sure it's still recording. All right. So, coffee. Where do we begin? Well, how about with how I started drinking coffee? How did I become such an old white guy so early on? Well, I'll tell you. I was addicted to amphetamines. Okay? And after about a year of abusing amphetamines, pretty hard, at least to me, pretty hard. I always, consider my drug use light compared to other people, because it is. But everybody's affected in different ways with different dosages. And, I used to read things online from people who used to just throw 300 milligrams of Adderall down their throat and just have a good old time. I've never taken that much at once. I think 100, maybe 120 is the most I've taken in a 24-hour period, and that was too much for me. I was very sensitive to it. I would take a 20 milligram in the morning, like you're supposed to if you're prescribed it, and I still wouldn't sleep that night. For Thanksgiving 2012, I went to my brother's, and his wife, his then wife, for Thanksgiving with my family, and I was struggling with my amphetamine addiction. And on the road trip there, we were driving to like Illinois. It was like a 6-hour drive or whatever. I was like, okay, I'm gonna pop some Adderall for the road there, for the trip there. But I'm not gonna bring any with me because I didn't know I was just gonna binge on it the whole time that I was there. So I popped a little bit of Adderall for the trip there. Played a little Pokemon on my Game Boy Advance. Whatever, regular stuff. Pokemon and Adderall, good combination. And, caught my buzz. But then we stayed at a hotel, and nighttime came around, and I crashed into a crazy world. It was I spun out a little bit hard, and I remember looking at the mirror in the hotel bathroom at night when everyone else was like asleep, and I just felt crazy. I'd have those moments sometimes when I was crashing on amphetamines. I would look in the mirror and I would get this humongous like derealization, depersonalization type thing where it didn't feel real to me. Looking at myself in the mirror just didn't feel real. And it just felt like something would pop in my brain and I'd be like, oh, I'm crazy. Yep, I'm going crazy. And I got caught in this loop of thoughts of my anxieties and my social anxiety. And I started texting, my wife, then just girlfriend, about it all, like all night. And just about how I told her how much I struggled with social anxiety and how I feel about talking to people. And I just got caught in these thoughts in this loop. And I was going nuts. I caught like no sleep that night. And so I think this was like the day before Thanksgiving. And then, so we went to have Thanksgiving, dinner at my brother's and his wife, but then, what do I say? Ex-wife. Yeah, that's the word. And his now ex-wife. And I was crashing pretty hard, I remember. And my brother's ex was, pretty good coffee drinker herself, as well as my dad. And I remember like, wanting to try it. I think because I was just crashing and I knew, you know, there was something drug about coffee. I had never really experienced it before, or caffeine for that matter, except in Sody Pop, and 5 Hour Energy. I do remember drinking those when they came out, but otherwise I didn't drink any other energy drinks. But I was like desperate, man. So I remember pouring a cup. She had some milk. I put some milk in it, some sugar in it, and I banged like 3 cups. And I started to feel euphoric again. And it lifted me out of my crash. And I got real talkative and real chatty. And right there, it triggered in my brain like, oh, this is coffee. I like. You know. And so from then, I went back home and I struggled with amphetamines for a little bit longer until that came to a crash in December 2012. Like a month after Thanksgiving, right before Christmas. And I finally quit for the first time. And I got on Xanax and I was very mentally messed up. It really was like making me crazy, turning into a crazy person, and giving me so much anxiety and depersonalization issues and derealization. And so I chilled, for like Christmas, and I was supposed to be going to, I was supposed to start school finally in like January. But in early January, I was living with my mom, and I was staying away from amphetamines and weed and everything. And I decided to give coffee a try again. And there was a Dunkin' Donuts near our house, and I remember one morning I asked my mom if I could have some money to go get a cup of coffee. And she gave it to me, and I walked to the Dunkin' Donuts, and I got the largest size coffee I could with cream and sugar. I didn't really know much else about it. I never really tried it black yet. I didn't know any of the different kinds of coffees or anything. I was just like, asked them, coffee, cream, and sugar, I guess. And heaven in a cup it was. I came home and I smashed that 24-ounce coffee, boy. I was watching ESPN's First Take with Stephen A. Smith and Skip Bayless. And I remember then they brought that euphoria back. And I just remember watching ESPN just laughing and smiling and just having such a good time. I'd take a shower and I started dancing in the shower and singing in the shower. It's when coffee can be a little bit much at first, for real. It's a real good dose of drug. I've never really taken caffeine any other way except, like I said, some 5-Hour Energy drinks. And I just don't know if you'd get the same effect just taking caffeine pills. Maybe you would. But there's something about coffee that's a bit different. And I think it's because it's got a combination of things in it. It's not just caffeine. There's like theobromine in it or something like that, which is also in tea. And there's some other things in it that makes coffee like when it first hits you, it's like a real smooth, clean buzz. It really is. It's only when you start to consume tons of it that I at least start to get the jitters, quote unquote jitters, and anxiety and the palpitations. And I've gotten to that point many times, almost every day now, because, I started off, drinking just those 24-ounce Dunkin' Donuts coffees, and that's pretty much all I would have. And then I started getting K-cups, for the coffee maker at my mom's house. And, I was maybe drinking like 3 or 4 cups a day for a long time. And now I'm up to like 10 to 11 cups a day. And that's a different story. That's an addiction story. And there are problems with that. I won't deny that. But for the most part, I still love my coffee. Oh. Especially when you're sick, boy. You drink a few cups of coffee and you feel great. I still got a runny nose, though. Hold on. Oh, Lord, I'm sick. So, that's a little bit of my history of it. I could go farther back. I mean, like I said, my dad, I get my coffee addiction from him for sure. He's drank coffee as long as I've known him. And my earliest memories of coffee are probably like waking up on a Saturday or Sunday morning or something Especially like a Saturday morning. I'd wake up and I'd go in the living room and just watch like Kids WB, watch Pokemon and Jackie Chan Adventures or Fox Box, with Sonic X and Kirby, Ultimate Muscle, the good stuff. And, each morning would pretty much smell like coffee. Every once in a while I'd see the Folgers coffee tin. He's a Folgers guy. Out there, like the aluminum can. I'd see like maybe the coffee filters, or every once in a while I'd see the coffee filters in the cupboards. And the coffee filters were always aesthetically pleasing to me. I'm not sure why. They just looked like soft paper. Like something about it just was, it's weird when things like that seem appealing to you, like a coffee filter. I don't know. Something about it just was appealing to me. The first time I ever tried coffee, I'll never forget. I was probably about 6 or 7. I was real little. And I remember my dad was outside mowing the lawn, and he left his coffee mug outside on the deck in this nice, beautiful powder blue mug. And that's the other thing I used to, I have strong memories of with coffee is all the mugs my dad had. He had so many different mugs and so many different colors, and always made it aesthetically pleasing to me. And I had this, my favorite mug of his, because I had a favorite mug of my dad's. I didn't use it myself, but I was this weird kid. It was this powder blue mug, and it had his coffee in it. It was real light brown and creamy looking, because my dad loves his creamer. And I was like, I'm going to taste it. And I remember taking a gulp of it and being like, yuck, yuck. It was like, like lukewarm. It was not good. I was like, I'll never drink this again. Boy, was I wrong. Now I just drink it black. Like my coffee, like I like my women. Sorry, that's a classic joke. Yeah. It's a bit of my history with it. And yeah. So I've been drinking it ever since, it's been one of those, for the most part, good drugs in my life. I've struggled with addiction with other things, and it's like, coffee's one of those that I feel like I could always fall back on, and it gives me a little something, not too much, It's not like amphetamines where I'm going to be crashing for the next 27 hours. But yeah. But why do I love coffee so much? I love when things have history to it. I love when things have, I don't know, complexity, I guess, to it. There's so much to coffee. It's like, well, you might just think of it as just ground up brown powder, but what is that? What is that ground up brown powder? How does it made? Where's it come from? So, I want to go over a little bit of the history of it. And coffee is a tree. It's the coffee tree, and there's actually a few different species of coffee tree. I watched a really good video. I'll link it in this video about all the different kinds of coffee plants there are. It's pretty wild actually. But the most common ones are Arabica and Robusta, and there are these nice trees that grow these green leaves and also these white flowery petals, and then they grow these green berries, and when they're ripe, they turn red. Is that the word, ripe? Yeah, ripen. When they ripen, they turn red, and so these got these red coffee cherries, they call them, and inside the coffee cherries is the seeds. So it's actually, when we talk about coffee beans, we're talking about coffee seeds. That's actually what they are, because each berry contains 2 seeds in it. That's what a coffee bean is. If you get 1 seed in a coffee cherry, that's what they consider pea berries. Costa Rica is really well known for their pea berries. It's usually got 1 small seed in it, and for some reason, there's something bougie about coffee. I won't deny, and there's a part of me that likes that bourgeois, that bouginess, a little bit. They'll take something like that, oh, this cherry only grew 1 tiny little seed, so that's more exquisite coffee. It's like, well, why? Not really. But they consider it better. They call it pea berry, and they collect those 1 seeds, and they put them all together, and they'll make a pea berry blend. which is very good. It's still very good for sure. But I don't know how much different it is compared to coffee cherries that grow two or have two seeds in them. But and yeah, and so that's what they use. Now, coffee trees grow wild in Africa, specifically Ethiopia. So it's been pretty much determined that that's how coffee kind of started, you know, getting around. Is the people in Ethiopia, had discovered it. There's the famous legend, of course, of Kaldi, the goat herder, who discovered his goats going to these coffee trees and eating the cherries off of them, and then becoming wild, crazy goats afterwards, dancing around and just beeping, bah, bah, bah. They probably started having political discussion and playing backgammon. And Caldi was like, well, that's weird. Why are my goats playing backgammon and smoking hookah right now after eating these cherries? And so he tried them for himself and felt invigorated and energized by these cherries. And that's how supposedly it all started, really. And they started taking the cherries and the seeds out of them and grounding them up and putting them with fat and making like energy balls out of them and eating them that way. It's said that maybe eventually they started to burn like the leaves along with the seeds together to make like a concoction, and found out that it smelled really good, and discovered that the beans were like nice and roasted and brown. So they started taking those and crushing them up in a mortar and pestle and making ground coffee, mixing it with water, and there you go. To this day, Ethiopia has these rituals where they drink like they'll drink 3 cups of coffee dedicated to like these 3 like deities or gods, or and it's a whole ceremony. They get the beans, they cook them in a pan and until they're nice and brown, and crush them up in a mortar and pestle and make a ton of coffee in big pots, and they sit there and they drink it, and very ceremonial. And I like that. I like that stuff. I like that aspect. It gives coffee. I like when people appreciate something like that. They understand that it's something to be appreciated, and a lot of people are just going to Starbucks and slamming down their 24-ounce lattes and crap like that, and not thinking anything of it, just so they could go to work and put up with people. But there's something very special about it, I think, almost magical, and there's a reason why. It's like it's like the number 2 commodity in the world, like next behind oil. Actually, it's like the number 2 traded commodity, right behind oil. That's how important it is to society. There's a few things that are discovered and spread out throughout the whole entire world and last for thousands of years, and coffee is one of them, and it's still like the most consumed thing to this day. And that's that's got to be something special about it. It's the one thing that everybody can agree on is okay. It's like alcohol's up there. Like, people know, like, we kind of need alcohol in a way because life is stressful. But people also acknowledge that it kills you. It can kill you. You can drink too much. It can destroy your organs and your liver, and it can make you so intoxicated that you hurt yourself or somebody else. But it's been so important in society for thousands of years. You just possibly can't get rid of it. But coffee's that one thing that it's like you try to look at the negative effects of coffee, and it's like, I was like trying to find like something about coffee. I was like, can coffee give you a heart attack? Can coffee give you heart disease? And then you look it up, and it's like, actually, 4 cups of coffee a day reduces your risk of heart disease. And it's like, it's really good for your heart, and it's really good for you in so many different ways. It's like, wow, that's amazing, dude. Like, it's pretty amazing. It's kind of like marijuana. You're trying to look up like, all the bad things about marijuana, and there are some things. I struggle with the marijuana thing now, and I don't know. Again, another thing that's has its place in society, especially at this point. Marijuana is like bigger than ever now. But it's like it's so hard to find a negative health aspect of marijuana, and people just praise it as this cure for so many things. But if you look deeply, you'll find there have been some studies that show that it's maybe not so great. And so I remain weary on it. I think it's awesome, but I don't initially, particularly partake myself anymore, because I, as an individual, was having some problems with it. But coffee, man, coffee's still good. It's still good, And so from there on, it did spread. It found its way to the island of Mocha and into Yemen, and that's where it really blew up, was in Yemen, and spread through the Middle East, and some of the first coffee houses started popping up. And supposedly they had coffee houses for rich people to enjoy coffee, big extravagant places that people would just go and just get drunk off coffee, boy. But also, it's kind of like one of those things. It's like you couldn't keep it from the poor, man. Coffee's for everybody, and so these poorer versions of coffee houses are called coffee khanas started popping up as well, where people could go and drink coffee for the cheap, and people would, play games, play chess, and play backgammon, and smoke smoke that hookah. And, it was known that prostitutes would come around, and, people would get into a little bit of trouble. And so it became kind of a little bit notorious. And one of the most notorious things about it were people were talking about political things. They were talking about their government. They're, talking about new ideas. Oh, hold on. I might have a break here in the audio. Don't freeze up on me now. Please, Audacity. Make sure it's still recording. Okay. I think we might be okay. I don't know how that's going to be through editing. I've noticed the last, couple podcasts I've had to make with my computer being a piece of junk, there's a lot of audio skips. Which is why you might see weird quick cuts and quick edits when I edit these. So I didn't talk about that, did I? My birthday's in 5 days. I'll be 29. It's the end of the world. I can't stand it. I don't want to be 30. I don't want my 20s to be over. But I'm really grateful that I might get a new computer for my birthday. So that's all I need. That's all I need is a new computer. And we'll be back in business. Be hopefully pumping these out a little bit more without so much trouble. But so coffee really is something about it, I mean, it just makes you talk. It makes you want to talk, and kind of makes the spark start a little bit in your brain and the ideas and stuff, I know it does it for me. And so it had this notoriety about it, to where the governor of Mecca wanted to ban it. And there was this whole debate too, because this is a very Muslim-heavy area of the world, and according to the Quran, no intoxicants. And so there was this debate: is coffee an intoxicant or isn't it? And so the governor of Mecca was like, yeah, it is. But mostly he was mad because people were talking bad about him. And so he wanted to go into the coffee houses and start cutting people's heads off. But the Sultan loved coffee. And he's like, nah, this is different, y'all. This is different. We need this. We can't have wine. We can't get drunk. We need something. Okay? We need something to go along with our shish. And so he said, no, coffee's great for us all. And that's a magical thing, That's what I'm saying. Like, people are like, it's like we've determined as human beings that there's something, because like when you talk about stimulants, it's like, now I've been overstimulated. When you're overstimulated, it's a bit intoxicating. MDMA is a stimulant, but it's kind of intoxicating. Amphetamines can be kind of intoxicating because it's so overstimulated. Those are drugs, but there's something about coffee that's like a perfect balance of being like stimulated, but not too much. There's a relaxing aspect of it too. And there's a very clear-headedness of it, There's a lot of clarity with it, and I think human beings can agree on that. It's even if the Muslims say it's okay, then it must be okay because they're pretty strict people, and Christians were as well, and we'll get to that too, because supposedly the Middle East, especially like Yemen, they wanted to keep coffee to themselves. But it did spread to, like Istanbul, which is like modern day Turkey, and that's how you get your Turkish coffee as well, which is a coffee made in a very specific way. You take what's called like an e-brick, which I would love to get one day. See, I used to make coffee. I make coffee all sorts of ways, and when I first, me and Ajay, shouldn't say her name, my wife, when we first moved into our first place, I wasn't able to take my mom's coffee maker with me, or maybe I did, and then it broke down. I can't remember. Or what it was that I was tired of making just one cup with the K cups, and so I looked up how to make different coffees, and I discovered Turkish coffee. And although I didn't make it the exact same way, I did make it stovetop in a pan. And basically, you throw the coffee in hot water and you let it boil, and then you stir it, and it gets all bubbly up top, and you get all that good crema and stuff like that. And then you turn it down, and you turn it up again, and you let it boil again, and then you mix it up again. And you're supposed to do it like 3 times, and then that's how you do it. And I think a lot of the times I would pour it all in a cup, grounds and all. They wouldn't even filter the grounds. And a lot of times, that's how I started. I was drinking my coffee when when we moved into our first house, because I would want to make a lot of it at once. I didn't want to just keep going back to the K cup and 1 cup, 1 cup, 1 cup. I'd make like 4 cups at a time, like this, in this way, like in Turkish style. Now theirs is a little bit more specific. Like I said, they cook it in a little thing called an e-brick, and let it boil 3 times. Mix it up. They also brew it with sugar in it as well. And then pour it in like these little cups and drink it that way. There is a different flavor aspect to it, I will say. It's a little bit different. It's good. It's good. It's not my most favorite way of making or tasting coffee, but it's good, Like I said, I would love to actually have an actual e-brick and do it that way. Because it's supposed to be made out of copper. And I don't know if that changes the effect in it or not. But yeah, so the Turks love their coffee, the Middle East loves their coffee, but they kind of want to keep it to themselves. But in like the 17th century, I don't know what the context was, but they went to war in Italy. And when they lost and retreated, I guess they left bags of coffee behind. And the Italian people started burning it, thinking that it was just like, camel food or something like that. But there was this guy from Turkey that was in Italy who knew what it was, and he was like, no, just stop burning it, I will take all these, this camel food or whatever. And he took all these bags of coffee, and he started it like one of the first coffee, the first coffee house in Europe, and served like Turkish coffee there, and it blew up. It absolutely blew up. And once again, these coffee houses started popping up in Europe, specifically like Italy, and became these places of political discussion. Alcohol was also ginormous in Europe at this time. People were waking up and drinking pints of beer and stuff like that with their breakfast. Drinking brandies and wine all day, just staying drunk. So this really changed so much about how people started their day and what they were able to do with their first part of their day before they got to the drink. They would go to coffee houses instead and drink this coffee and become all stimulated and come up with all these ideas and actually get to work on things, and again, it stirred political discussion, and and you'll see this route led to revolution, as coffee spread to France. And some of the earliest, most popular coffee shops started popping up there. Café La Procope, Duflor's, I think, was Italy. But I don't know, all these famous coffee shops, coffee houses, started popping up throughout France, and people would go there, like philosophers and politicians and scientists and people like Sir Isaac Newton, and even like, later on, like Thomas Jefferson and stuff would go there and drink coffee, and it became these places for political discussion and discussions of revolution and taking over your government. And oh man, it's amazing. Coffee's crazy, yo. It's crazy. It's so good. It changed the world, okay? That's what I'm trying to say. Everywhere it went, it created like revolutionary thought. It helped stir the Enlightenment, even. One of my favorite people ever that I've ever learned about is Mr. Voltaire. And he frequented Café Le Procope. And the dude supposedly drank like 50 cups of coffee a day. Now, I understand these were tiny little cups of coffee, so I don't know how much they would equate to today, but probably still like 15 to 20 or something like that of modern day mugs, I would assume. He loved his coffee and his chocolate. And I think to this day, Café Le Procope serves little pieces of chocolate with, their coffee. And if you haven't read Voltaire's stuff, you got to read it. It's some amazing stuff. Jonathan Swift as well, possibly influenced by coffee, and a guy that I've been learning a lot about lately that helped the American Revolution. Helped the revolution in Ireland. That dude was a revolutionary through and throughout. A lot of people just think of or know him as the guy who wrote Gulliver's Travels, man, which has a lot of like, I don't know, there's a lot of political themes in that, I guess, as well. I've never read it. But just, the man was a satirist, but a very brilliant man, and was all about revolutionary thought and, changing the government and, giving rights to the people, for the people, by the people. All because of coffee, man. I'm telling you. So it spread out throughout all of Europe, and then, of course, I'm not sure exactly, like, I have to go back a little bit because when they not only did this Turkish guy, get coffee from this battle, this war that happened in Italy, but the Dutch got a hold of it from Holland and then took it to grow it on Java. So that's why you have it. Like I said, I mentioned, I think, Mocha earlier. I get them confused. Mocha is a part of Yemen, and then the Dutch were in charge of Java, and they brought it to Java. But this is where also things, there is a shady aspect of coffee, and still kind of to this day, that's a very important part of conversation, is that they made, slaves grow coffee on Java. That's where, Mocha and Java come from, is the island of Mocha and the island of Java, where they went to grow coffee and planted coffee trees. But, this is when they started having slaves, start growing coffee for them and for mass production. And so I'm not exactly sure how coffee got to the United States of America, but it did. And one of the big aspects of it was people wanted to choose to drink coffee over tea because of the tea tax that was happening by the British. And it was a way to stand up to the British by drinking coffee instead. And once again, there was coffee houses popping up in the United States, and it was there were places of political discussion. And after the French Revolution happened, which may or may not have been produced by a bunch of coffee drinkers, American Revolution was as well, by a bunch of coffee drinkers, bro. Talking about revolution, and they finally did it, man. They finally did it over and beat back that big old bad British Empire, and we have the wonderful United States of America that we know it today. Thank you, coffee. But yeah. So the United States of America is weirdly enough one of the only places that you can't like grow coffee trees because of the climate. So, coffee trees started being planted in South America, Brazil, Colombia, and some of the, biggest coffee producers that we have to this day. It's still produced, of course, in Africa, where it grows wild, and then the islands of Mocha and Java, and then also India, got coffee as well, and started growing it there. So coffee, grows in all these different places, and the soil that these coffee trees are grown from affects the coffee, which is why the origin of coffee or the coffee that you have is so important. It's why a Colombian light roast is going to be different than a dark roasted Sumatran, and it's going to be different than a medium roasted Costa Rican, is going to be different than a light roasted Ethiopian, is different than a Indonesian, it eventually made its way to Hawaii, and Hawaii grows some of the greatest coffee called Kona coffee, some of the most sought out coffee ever, because of where it grows affects everything about that bean, dude, about the flavor and the aroma. And it's one of the things that I've learned to love and obsess about coffee is origin coffee, I have a great coffee. It's a Mexican Chiapas, I believe it's called, Chiapas. And it's from a locally roasted place here in town, and it's just wonderful. It's just so wonderful. To this day, though, my favorite coffee ever is Ethiopian coffee. Go figure. Its birthplace. A light roasted Ethiopian coffee. Bye! Some Yirgachev. Don't even talk to me if it's not Yirgachev. Okay? No, I'm telling you, there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of different types of coffees, all depending on where it's grown, and how it's roasted. And how it's roasted really affects everything too, because you have Sumatran coffee, which is Indonesian coffee, is normally like a heavy dark roast. But I've had wonderful light roasted Sumatran coffee as well. I'm more of a light roasted guy. I like the light brown of the beans. I like it's more of a light, florally, fruity flavor, and this is where coffee gets a little bougie, even for me sometimes. But it's something that keeps it interesting, and everybody can find like their coffee that they like. Now, coffee has gotten to a point, obviously, now as we get to more like the 19th century, where coffee companies in America started to pop up, and although I feel like they had good, what's the word I'm looking for? Grassroots origins, where, they were getting their coffee from probably like South America or, maybe Indonesia, maybe, different places like that. And, maybe they were even springing from getting coffee from Africa. Probably not, though, not so much. But, some of the earliest American coffee companies started popping up as just little places, little coffee shops, little coffee houses, where Americans can enjoy good but cheap coffee. This is where Arabica and Robusta come in, because Robusta is an easier grown coffee tree, but it's more bitter. And so I think these coffee companies started to get more Robusta instead of Arabica. And, Americans were none the wiser. They didn't know they were drinking garbage, bittery cups of coffee because they didn't have that good. And so you have companies like Folgers and Hills Brothers and Maxwell House all start popping up. And again, I feel like they had good intentions, and they helped spread coffee, around more in the United States, which I think is a good thing. But then they go into that mass production scale, and this is where, it's like, where are you getting your coffee from, and who, and what conditions, how are you paying these coffee farmers in other countries? And a lot of the time, these other countries, they would be poorer places of countries, whether it be, like I said, in Brazil or in India or Costa Rica, a lot of these places, or in Africa, they depended on, some villages and towns rely on coffee production. It's the only way they make money. And a lot of, companies, I think, pay horrible slave wages and make these people work so much, 16 hours a day, trying to produce coffee at massive quantities and making just garbage money. And so the conditions that people were, having to work under wasn't really of an importance during like the 19th century and even early 20th century. So Americans were getting crappy quality coffee. They were getting tons of it, but they're also, probably treating the coffee farmers not very well. Or they weren't being treated or paid as well as they should be. So over time, though, it became a bigger deal. You have in Italy in like the 1940s, espresso blew up. The espresso maker that we know today was invented, and I have one myself. I love me some shots of espresso. Espresso is wonderful. Espresso is made with these pumps that push water out very high pressure, or bars as they call them, usually like 15 bars of pressure or something like that. And it'll push like a small amount of coffee out at high pressure and give you little shots or little cups of coffee. Like a single shot of espresso is like half the caffeine or whatever of a regular cup of coffee. So standard cup of coffee we know today is 5 grams of ground coffee, or 10 grams of ground coffee, sorry. And it's supposed to be like 10 milligrams of caffeine in every gram of coffee. So if you're using 10 grams of coffee to make 1 cup, that's like 100 milligrams of caffeine. So that's why coffee is known as a pretty strong beverage, especially like here in America. But a shot of espresso has like 50 milligrams of caffeine, maybe even less, maybe like 40. And then a double shot has like 75 milligrams. So even a double shot of espresso isn't a full cup of coffee's worth of caffeine. So it's nice. It's nice to just get like a little bit, catch a little bit of buzz. But it tastes way stronger. It's real creamy up top. You got that, what they call crema up top. And it's wonderful. I love a good shot or double shot of espresso. A lot of people like to put their shots of espresso in their coffee and get super jacked. I like that too. I'm not against it. They call it the good old red eye. I think there's a lot of names for it. Americana, I think, is another name for it. But it blew up in Italy in like the 1940s, espresso. And so they started making all these different drinks though out of espresso. This is where the cappuccino was born, You put shots of espresso in a cup, and then you put milk in there, and then you they use what they call frothed milk, and it's heated up milk and then like, I don't know, whipped, I guess, basically to where it's like thick milk, and then they pour that on top, and it's like real foamy thick milk, and that's how you get your cappuccino. And then you have your lattes, which is I don't even exactly 100% know what makes a latte. I think it's just espresso and milk. I don't think it's frothed milk like a cappuccino. But you'll see like a lot of espresso makers have a milk frother. Mine doesn't work right now, but I've had my espresso maker for like 7 or 8 years. And I used to throw down on some cappuccinos. I used to make some, it was really neat. You'd froth up that milk and it would heat it up and make it real foamy. And then you just pour it on top of the milk and espresso. And this is where like barista art comes from. This is how they're able to make, if you've ever seen like hearts in your cappuccino or different shapes and symbols and stuff, is because they can use frothed milk because it doesn't mix into the coffee. It sits on top of it. And so these kinds of drinks became extremely popular in Europe. And then we get to Starbucks in the 80s in America. Oh, the 80s. Not sure why people cared about coffee so much, because they had cocaine. But yeah, Starbucks started in the 80s in America, and it brought, the guy Howard Schultz or whatever, I think he's the CEO of Starbucks still. He brought this idea to America. Lattes, frappes, cappuccinos, espresso. And that's what made, coffee boom once again in the United States. The devil itself, Starbucks. Charbucks, I call them. They're known for dark, burnt coffee. But it doesn't matter, because people usually don't drink their straight coffee black. They usually drink frou-frou drinks. And that's fine. That's okay. However you like your coffee, I've lightened up a little bit. When I got into coffee drinking, like I said, I started off on Dunkin' Donuts cream and sugar, and which is still one of my favorite things to get, is a Dunkin' Donuts cream and sugar coffee. They just do it better than anybody else. I get cream and sugar from Caribou or Starbucks, and it doesn't taste nearly as good. So those places I just drink black, but Dunkin', I always get cream and sugar. But then I started making coffee at home, I started using French vanilla creamer and sugar. And then one day I was just like, I'm going to taste it black. And for some reason, I just loved it. I loved it, and I've been drinking predominantly black coffee ever since. And I've noticed like that's how you really taste the difference in coffees. That's how you taste the difference between a Kona and a Costa Rican, and between a Kenyan and a Brazilian. You know, is drinking it black. You can really taste the difference, and I love that. You know, and I've lightened up though a little bit about it, because I will always stick by this. Crappy coffee is better than no coffee. And so when I'm really in a pinch and I only have a little bit of money, I'll go buy a little thing of Folgers. But it's a little bit hard to choke down black. So I might throw some cream and sugar in it or something. Instant coffee. The devil. The devil itself. The only worse thing than instant coffee is decaf coffee. Okay. Now, recently, though, I have been turned on to or pointed towards the direction of Asian instant coffee. Like, I found in Asian markets, and it's actually a little bit better than, like, your Nescafe or whatever. But still, instant coffee just tastes so putrid. I don't know why. I just can't drink it black. I have to throw some sugar or cream in it. And every once in a while, I will splurge on, I tried Dunkin' Donuts. It was a birthday cake cold brew, and so it had like whipped cream and sprinkles on it and everything. I tried it once. It was delicious, but I don't want to make bad habits. I already got enough bad habits. And then also recently, what's also become pretty popular, and I've gotten into since I went out to San Diego this year, because it was everywhere, dude. Cold brew coffee. I've been making cold brew coffee now for the last couple of months at home. And it is refreshing, I will say. There's something tasty about it. I was always against the idea of cold coffee, because I thought of like, oh, that's like making hot coffee and leaving it out all day. But no, my friend, it's not. Brewing coffee in cold water, you do get a kind of more flavor in certain ways. And I do usually, though, throw some milk and sugar in it. But I can drink it black, too, some cold brew. And it is refreshing. Boy, on these hot summery days when I come home from work, I love to smash a cold brew. It's wonderful. It's a wonderful experience. But San Diego turned me on to that, because cold brew was everywhere. Specifically, also, what's picked up the last couple of years is nitrous cold brew. And I've become very fond of those as well. Some good nitrous cold brew. Oh, my gosh. It's creamy and foamy and so good. So good. I went to this coffee shop on Coronado Island when we went to San Diego called Trident Coffee. And they literally had nitrous coffee on tap, bro. Just pumping it out. And I was like, this is the future. This is great. I've come to love it. I really have. So I've become less picky about it, but I still do prefer a good hot black cup of coffee. A good quality Arabica. But these are all the different things I love about coffee, man. See how complex it is. Like I said, like I'll link that video, because when I saw that video about all the different coffee plants and stuff, it just taught me once again, like, wow, just about how different, coffee can be, and how much, how versatile it is. And I like that about things. I like when there's variety when it comes to things. I like walking in a coffee shop and seeing, the choices between Brazilian and Ethiopian and Kenyan and all these different, origins of country, because it tastes like you're getting a little bit of that country. You know what I'm saying? You're experiencing a little bit of culture every time. I like that a lot. And so, yeah, man. So, but yeah, Starbucks, it brought espresso to America. It brought the idea of Arabica coffee again to America. And, it pointed out the big difference between Arabica coffee and Folgers Robusta coffee. And now, I know, Americans, especially in like the Midwest and probably the South, they still love themselves some Folgers, I've heard people swear that they still to this day will only drink Folgers. I'm just like, what is you doing with your life? Why would you treat yourself so badly? I remember the first time I tried Maxwell House, I wanted to throw up. I bought it once and I will never buy it again. But like I said, it's better than no coffee. But if I still have a choice, I mean, because of, like I said, like places like Starbucks and Dunkin' Donuts, it made Arabica coffee, be produced more and brought to America more and sold in grocery stores more. I mean, yeah, okay, you can buy a big thing of Folgers for $5 or $6, and I guess that might be good enough for you. But just for a few dollars more, you can buy a nice, good, big bag of Arabica as well. It's not that much more expensive, so I just don't see why you would choose, the Robusta. I just don't know why. Some people genuinely do prefer that gross, bitter taste, I guess. I don't know. Or they're just used to it. I don't know. But it's so easy to find Arabica coffee now. I mean, it's literally everywhere. There's almost more Arabica now than there is Robusta. You just have a few of those old brands like Maxwell House and Hills Brothers and Folgers hanging around that sell it. But everything else that you see, West Rock was one I used to drink a lot. Even 8 o'clock, 8 o'clock is like cheap coffee, but it uses Arabica. And I've had some good 8 o'clock coffee. Walmart's brand uses Arabica. There's just so many. Javalia is still really good Arabica. You buy any of the Starbucks, Caribou, Dunkin' Donuts in the grocery stores, it's all Arabica. Some of my favorite probably, though, is Cameron's coffee. Caribou's up there, though, too. I really love me some Caribou. But I really love Cameron's because, again, it's all Arabica. It's all very well priced. And they have, at least where I'm at, lots of variety. Lots of variety of origins. And you got your artificially flavored coffees. I don't mess with those. I think those are disgusting. But Cameron's has a lot of good choices. They have a lot of good organically grown coffee choices. And I love me some Cameron's. I'm like never disappointed. I think that might be my favorite brand. Illy is wonderful, exquisite coffee. That's up there for me. I'm always looking out to try new coffees, though. Always, They got this other brand of coffee called Culinary something. I forget what it's called, Culinary Travels or something like that. That has some good coffees. I like to go to the Natural Grocer Store because they have tons of really cool, different organically grown coffees. Equal Exchange has great coffees. What else? But then you get to local roasters. If you can find somebody that locally roasts coffee in your town, I would buy from them. Kansas City has some amazing local roasters. Revo Cup has the best Costa Rican peaberry I've ever had. Broadway Coffee in Kansas City on Broadway. I had an amazing Ethiopian blend from them last time. That's one of my top favorites. We have this coffee roaster here in town where I got that Mexican Chiapas from that has just amazing coffee. Locally roasted coffee will usually get you the best. And it might be a little bit higher price, but you're supporting local business. So one day I would, I do daydream about having a coffee shop where I roast my own coffee. I think that would be the dream. If I could do that in my 40s or 50s or something like that, man, that sounds like a pleasant life to me. I can just indulge in my favorite cup, my one good addiction I feel like that I have, and share it with others. Have a place of just like a coffee house is supposed to be. Have a nice classic coffee house with games and where people can discuss politics, and maybe I'd even have a stage where people can throw down comedy or some poetry or whatever, slam poetry or whatever they call it. Spoken word, I think that's what it is. That would be the dream, man. That would be the dream. Coffee. I think that's pretty much all I wanted to cover here. We're about at an hour. I'm feeling a little lightheaded. I'm feeling a little dizzy. I feel a little sick, I will admit. So I think I'm gonna end it here. But yeah. This is why I am obsessed with coffee. This is why I love it so much. My favorite addiction. and yeah, so go enjoy a cup. Go enjoy coffee however you like to enjoy it. It's I think it's going to be around forever. Like I said, it's like one of the things that all human beings, everywhere it goes, it's like everybody can agree on it. Oh, I forgot to talk about, how it impacted Christianity too, because once it got to Europe, again, it was like this thing like, oh, should we be enjoying it or not? And the Pope himself tried it and he blessed it. He blessed coffee and said, "This shall be the drink of the Christians." We can't just let the Muslims enjoy it. We should be enjoying it too, basically what he said. It's the one thing that every culture and religion and people can all agree on is good. So government, never take our coffee away. That will create a revolution, 100%. This has been Deep Thoughts. Hope everyone's doing well. Hope everyone's staying safe. I love you guys. Remember to think freely, think often, drink plenty of coffee. See you next time.